Why do you think so many people were doing the productized agency? It's basically why people are struggling to grow. And I think to stay relevant, you essentially have to have a pivot or an edge. You know why I like luxury Airbnb personally for Twitter and LinkedIn? It's because
But I think it's a skill thing, right? Content's kind of like the gym, where like whenever you go for the first time, you look shit and like it looks really bad, and then as you do it more and more, you kind of get better at it. Because I think it is a skill. Like for me, it's a skill issue where I don't sound concise enough, and I don't come across that way because I just haven't learned to condense a point that I want to make down to 30 seconds. And so I think as much as like it might look odd, it's because you just haven't done the volume yet. Like the moment you do the volume, you'll be able to actually see the skill improvement. And I think that's why the yapping's great, because if you just make your point 3 times a day, like look, when you look at like someone like Ben Bader, he just literally just like did probably like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, he just started doing like 3 yaps a day. Same with Mason. Then like everyone got really fucking good at it because yeah, you're doing volume and you actually think about when you create like what can I do better now. I thought that was pretty interesting.
I also think the connection you build with your audience is a lot deeper if you
Yeah.
successfully do the yap style because they feel like they're in the room with you. They're like they feel like they know you.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm curious because you had this tweet. Was it yesterday about productized agencies? Yeah, it was yesterday. I'm gonna read it. You said just want to express my deepest condolences to those poor agency owner souls who felt like building a productized agency was a smart move. Have fun trying to over deliver for your 37 clients at 3K a month. Um, why do you think so many people were doing the productized agency the last few years?
I think a lot of people they fall for traps, right? And the reason I say that is because I think people start an agency traditionally so they can have like financial freedom, right? And then they try to scale to 100K per month. They realize it's actually kind of tough. And like really to me, there's two pathways, right? Which is one, you go for like I'm building this like small retainer agency where like I have these pods and like it's very structured, it's very systemized, but like it's a lot of management, it's like shit margins, and like your value comes from eventually hitting 50 to 100 plus clients, you taking a spread over those, and then essentially like having the opportunity to sell. Or the second one is kind of like obviously what we do, which is like we work with sub 10 people at the moment, big retainers, big ref shares, and like that's how you scale by getting clients the best results. To me, the first model is so flawed because it's such a big people business. Like the margins are so bad. And like just in general, like I think it just doesn't make any sense to me, like justifiably. But then the second thing is most agency people, they don't really have like a long-term play, right? So like even for me, like I had to ego check myself for I was like, am I gonna sell this agency? And I was like, very likely not. So I was like, okay, what's my long-term play? Because probably in 20 years, I'm not gonna be running shoutouts anymore. Hate to say it, I don't think that's going to be around. But so I'm like, okay, well, what am I exactly doing? So I was like, okay, cool. Well, I want to build my wealth through like luxury Airbnbs and like investing, right? So I was like, okay, cool. What's my goal? It's like, okay, cool. Well, I want to invest 50 grand a month into the S&P 500. But basically, like to me, it just didn't make sense where I say, okay, cool. If I invest 50 grand a month and I want to have a quarterly like luxury Airbnb, then I'm like, okay, cool. As a result, I will probably need more or less like let's say a luxury Airbnb, I put 10% down, but I'll probably need like 150 to 200 grand, which means like let's say I need 60 out of there, so I need to basically profit like let's say 120 or let's say 100 goes into investments every month, and then outside of that probably like 20k lifestyle, so I need to profit roughly like 150 if I really want to go all in. So I'm like, okay, cool, 150 rounded out to 200, what's going to go and allow me to clear 2 mil a year in profit. And then like if I look at it, I'm like, well, I need to do it either way. With an agency, you got to deliver at a high level. So I'm like, well, that now is a lot less like likely that I will do that in a productized agency, because at the same time I have a certain lifestyle that I want to keep up. And like with the productized route, like for a very long time you're not going to have that. When like to me, I just looked at it and I went, that's just not the process, the journey to me is just so undesirable, to where like it just doesn't make sense for me to put that effort into that. And I think everyone will convince themselves so like, oh, I need to deliver a 10 out of 10, like I need to deliver a 10 out of 10 like performance every month for clients.
Yeah.
And I can do that across 40 people. I think it's just fucking horrendous.
Yeah, I think it's There's so many flaws in it. It's like basically top to bottom flawed. I think the only upside is like you can quote unquote have exit potential, but I also think that's kind of a race to it's a race to the bottom, and I also think it's kind of a fad. I don't think people. I think it was kind of hot, and now I'm not a big fan. But even the team,
There's services where it makes sense. Like if your service is super simple, right? Like then yes, it definitely makes sense. Like for example, like you know, if your service literally was like, hey, I'll script you 10 videos and then I'll boost them for you on socials with Facebook ads. Like, that's a simple service, but once again, you're not going to be able to charge a significant amount of money, and like eventually people will figure it out through AI or whatnot to go and do it themselves.
yeah. I also
Whereas
think
managing a process end to end, it's just so much like it's harder to go and replace, you know? Like we
yeah,
have a client right now who wants to replace us and like he's actively oppressed that interest, but he can't because there's so much like IP that we have. So we just went, well, instead of just doing it on your main profile, which you seem to be very protective about, let's just let's just start a secondary profile.
yeah,
And then it's like we're pretty sticky
yeah.
on the service, you know?
Yeah, I think it's also there's like so many flaws. I think it's also just like not fun to do a productized service. I think you kind of do it, and then what's incentivizing you to take it to the next level and the next level and the next level? And my eyes opened when I was doing kind of a half productized, half partnership a model like a year and a half ago, and one of the prospects literally asked on the call like, "What incentivizes you to like continue to make this better?" I'm like, "Well, shit." Nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Like you deliver your 3K, 5K a month service and you give them 5K a month in value, 10K a month in value, whatever, but then what? You're not incentivized to scale them to 100K, 200K, 300K, 400K a month because you don't get a bigger piece of the pie. So I think it's just a win. It's a lose-lose for the agency and the client. I also think it's less fun. You don't really develop a relationship with your client. Your team's not really excited after you launch. You get the dopamine and then it goes away.
100%.
So I think it's just, yeah, top to bottom, I think it makes sense to have some sort of partnership, like you said, unless it's a simple service like editing or boosting or like, I don't know, something boring.
To me, I just don't think it's a business where like, and some people love it, but like to me, unless it was like it's like an MRR component, it doesn't make sense. Like for example, coaching is a great one where like if you actually run the high ticket coaching model and you run it as a subscription, I actually think that's a pretty smart model. Like people just pay access, they can decide every single month whether they got more value out of it, you know? It's kind of like if I had an agency, say I had like an agency coaching, like whatever, a high ticket MRR. And all I say is like, look, if you pay me $3,000 and you're making an extra $6,000 a month every single month, it's well worth it, you know? Like
Yeah.
then it's worth it. But then it's a simpler ROI to justify where it's like, hey, if I can just give you one piece of advice every single month that's gonna make you more money, then that's all you kind of need, which I think is the real deal here.
Let's do some predictions because you posted your December stats. I didn't post my December stats. I only posted my 2024 stats. But your December stats do you have your 2024 stats or no? Totals?
Nah.
No. All right. Well, December 2024, 110,000 new followers, 1.7 million, 1.8 million dollars generated, 9 viral reels, 1 million plus views, and 3 clients hit record months. What do you think is going to be like the 2025 trends? What do you think you guys are going to do? What do you think 2025 has in store for personal brands versus 2024, or do you think it's more of the same? Because we had an election.
I think the big thing that I see, and this is not necessarily related to content, I think the big prediction that I have is like that it's a lot of like community, but like not community from like a build a 99 7 a month school community, but I think a lot of it is going to be like the retreats and mastermind or like in-person access types that I will really sort through. Like we're already seeing this across clients where like people, they want that in-person connection. They want to have a mentor, like someone that they can rely on, who they can meet in person. And I think that's a big thing. 'Cause I think people crave that human connection like more than ever because they've been hobbling around Zoom. So I think that's a massive one. Like you can tell, like we have clients that literally spend like $200,000 a year to see Andy Elliott once a month. And they go fly around, they like chase around this guy because like I want to be in the same room as him. I think that's going to be massive. You can see with chicks even, like a lot of the female offers, the ones that print, they have like some form of like quarterly mastermind and graduations and whatnot because they want to have the like female like sisterhood. You know, I think that's my big one. And the second one that I believe is like, it's a lot of like, it's going to be like an 80-20 principle. Like the top 20%, they're going to do incredibly well. I think the bottom 80 are going to be incredibly bad. More because I think people have figured out what info is and what info is good and bad at. I think now it's really going to come down to who can do it really fucking well, and like who can predictably and consistently like actually get results and actually crack the marketing. Because everyone's done shout outs now, everyone's done Facebook ads, everyone's done YouTube ads, everyone's done all the ropey dopes. So now the challenge is going to be who can actually crack a channel where they're somewhat unique and very consistent, and they kind of figure that channel out and actively hammer down on that one. Because if you can, that's great. Like I've seen it. People make 500 grand a month for newsletter. You know, like I've seen all the channels, but like you gotta have a channel where you're a bit unique, and it's not just like, oh, Cole Gordon ran this ad angle, so I'm running the same ad angle. And then when Cole Gordon doesn't have an ad angle, I'm fucked.